listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome into the GM Shuffle. I'm Grace Remington with Michael Lombardi, recapping a wild week 2 in the NFL. Michael, it was upset city. The Cowboys, Ravens, 49ers, and Lions all going down. The favorites finish 8-6 straight up. Underdogs win the day, going 8-5-1 against the spread. We're going to get into all these games a little bit deeper, but first, your reaction to the action this weekend.
Well, it was a carnage for me. I didn't anticipate some of the teams playing as poorly as they did. Certainly, when you look at it, underdogs that were 6 points or more are now 8-0 against the spread. I mean, there's a huge imbalance, and I thought a couple things really happened in this week 2. It's the hardest week for me to handicap. I blew last year. It was hard for me to do it then because I assumed some things, and then you go into something that's not the right assumption. You know, like I thought Sean McVay would have his team ready, could handle it. That wasn't good. I thought Sean Payton would be able to move the ball a little bit. I thought the score would be low, but I thought that would happen. That didn't happen. And then, of course, I thought Jacksonville would play better, and they didn't. So it's a humbling weekend in terms of when you're giving out bets and you're trying to make it. But I think what we learned was red zone offense was horrible. It was really bad, Grace. I mean, Detroit, you look at that stat sheet, there's no way Detroit should lose the game based on when you look at the game book, but they did. You look at what Jacksonville did. You couldn't score in the red zone. How about Washington? They go 0 for 6 and still win the game. So to me, red zone was really a problem. And then what I thought was a bigger issue was how to handle the fourth quarter. Who can handle the fourth quarter? Baltimore obviously couldn't handle the fourth quarter. How do you play the fourth quarter? All those things, to me, were really what this second week was about. And we're seeing a lot of it. And then I think the young offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators, whoever they are, whatever side of the ball, I think they're struggling as well. So there's a lot to take from this week. We'll get to all of it. But I think to me, it's a learning experience that that humbles you. It's just part of the NFL. You know, if you think you have all the answers in the NFL, you're going to be made fun of really quickly.
Yeah, that was kind of my feeling coming out of it is we can talk all we want preseason, but these early weeks, none of us know anything. Anything can happen. And that's why football is one of the greatest reality shows out there. But I love your stat about those 6-point underdogs going 8-0. If I just counted right, looking ahead to week 3 lines right now, there are 8 games with a spread of 6 or more points. So maybe that's something we can look at later on in the week.
Yeah.
But let's get into some breaking news here. So as we record this Monday morning, the news came down that Isaiah Pacheco, running back for the Chiefs, has suffered a fractured fibula and is undergoing tests. He had some x-rays last night. He'll undergo an MRI today to determine just how bad the fracture is or if there's any ligament damage to his ankle. And this, by the way, is with wide receiver Hollywood Brown already headed to the IR. So how does the Pacheco injury impact the Chiefs right now?
Well, I think they're going to have to shop out there to find a running back, right? They're going to have to look for one because when you steal the kid that they signed as a college free agent from UCLA, I can't imagine they're going to give him all the reps, right? And so with Edwards-Helaire, who's having some depression issues or mental issues, he's on NFI. He's not available to come back for a couple of weeks. They're going to have to go outside their area to find a running back. Pacheco, their ability to run the ball saved them in that game against Cincinnati. This is 2 weeks in a row Cincinnati hasn't been able to play run defense. Now, Mahomes obviously had a couple scrambles for 29 yards, but the reality of this game was Pacheco, their ability to win that. I mean, when you beat Kansas City, when you lose to Kansas City, here's what the hard part is if you're Zach Taylor, who is now 0-6 the first 2 weekends of the season, the last 3 years. 0-6. You might want to think about changing how you get your team ready for the season. But this one is really hard to take because if I were to tell you, Grace, that you're going to have Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 151 yards. He's going to get sacked twice. He's going to be under constant pressure, numerous holding calls against the offensive line. He's going to throw 2 interceptions, right? He's only going to convert 1 third down the entire day. You're saying, well, we're going to have to beat him. And yet this team finds a way to win. And Burrow played as well as you could play. But again, they couldn't find balance. They couldn't run the football. And when you can't run the ball and you can't stop the run, I don't care what the game book says. It's a problem because you never get control of the game. You never can get control of the game because you don't have any way to take the pressure off the quarterback. And look, I don't know what you felt like, but to me, that was Pat. The guy came early on the play. There's no question. You had to call that. He was early. I don't think the guy would have made the catch anyway, Grace, if he didn't even touch him. I don't think he was going to catch that ball.
I mean, the video clearly showed the guy jumping on his back, and maybe that hindered his ability to get up and get the ball. But I think Twitter just kind of overreacts. It's a jealousy thing. People are jealous of the Chiefs,
Shocking.
So of course they're going to blame the umpires on that one. But I think that was the correct call. Can we talk about Jamar Chase, by the way? I mean, almost single-handedly losing this game for the bank in his diva era, jawing at the ref, and Joe Burrow actually has to push him. Like, it wasn't just a back off. He physically pushed him full force away. What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, look, the guy had 5 targets. He has 4 catches, 8.8 yards. I mean, and he turned down $35 million. I know my man Danny O's on ESPN. Somebody told me he's screaming, they got to pay the guy. You got to pay the guy. Well, they tried to pay the guy. They tried to pay him $35 million a year. He doesn't want it. Like, quit shilling for all the players to get paid more money. Like, he didn't play. He's no better than Justin. They're the same player, right? One guy makes $35 million. You say you want a lot more than Jefferson. You're not going to get a lot more. They offered you $35 million, and now it's your job to have a really good year. And the fact that they still have, after this year, they still have 3 more years to his rights. I mean, that becomes disruptive from within, right? This is where really this becomes doing what's right for the team when it may not be right for you. This is where LSU, you've got to take your inner channel. You got to become a team player, and you can't be a diva. You hit the nail on the head. Like, when Mike Gesicki's your leading receiver at 91 yards, I mean, that's probably wrong. I mean, that's probably a wrong thing. I thought Burton, he had the 47-yarder down the field, but to me, it becomes disruptive from within, and you're not going to beat the Chiefs. Look, you had the Chiefs on the ropes. You had them on the ropes. You should have won the game. Everything you did was right, except you couldn't win the fourth quarter when you needed to win it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd think he'd have more composure in a close game when it's limited time on the clock. By the way, this Joe Burrow versus Pat Mahomes matchup, it's the first quarterback matchup in NFL history. 5 straight games decided by 3 points or fewer. The Bengals leading it 3-2. So this one turning into a nice little rivalry here. Let's
hopefully we'll see it again.
Yeah, of course. Let's move ahead though to the most shocking result of the weekend, and that was the Ravens. Closed as an 8.5 point favorite. They lose outright to the Raiders, giving up a 10-point lead in the first quarter. And for the in the fourth quarter. And for the second week in a row, the top pick in the Circa Survivor contest falls. So now over 50% of entries are knocked out of the contest. But what was your reaction to the Ravens fallout here?
Well, I've said this all year. There's a couple factors going on with the Ravens. I thought, to me, if you go back and look at the preseason concerns you have about the Ravens, offensive line, a lot of young players, right? You got how do they fit Derrick Henry into the scheme? How does he kind of manifest himself, and can he close the game out? Then you look at defensively, Zach Orr. He's only been a coordinator for 3 years, right? So, like, he doesn't have a lot of game experience. I mean, I know he's ready, and everybody thinks that, okay, he's ready. All right, let me give you the fourth quarter. The Raiders dominate the fourth quarter. They kick 2 field goals, score a touchdown. The last 4 drives of the game for the Raiders, after they get the interception, they go touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal. Now, you tell me that you know what you're doing in the second half? Like, football in the fourth quarter is a standalone game. You got to have things to get your team off the hook. The Ravens offensively could take part in losing this game because when they get the ball back with 7:36 to go in the game, they go 3 plays and out. They take 1:45 off the clock. Then they get the ball with 3:54 to go in the game, and they take another 1:33 off the clock. Shocking, right? I mean, at some point, you got to get first. They lose 6 yards on that drive. So as much as Zach Orr's inexperience has hurt them, their inability to close the game out with Derrick Henry in the backfield, like, they refuse to run Henry the way you have to run. And this has been the constant theme of Baltimore. They never do what they should do for their players. Lamar belongs under center. Put Henry deep back in the out. You got to give him the football. Well, what John Harbaugh said last week was so true. we're not featuring anybody. That's right. He's not featuring anybody. You know what? When you don't feature somebody, you don't have an offense. It's what Dan Henning told me years ago. If you don't have any tendencies on offense, you ain't any good. That's Baltimore. They ain't any good on offense right now because they're trying to do too much. Oh, we got to get this guy the ball. They got to define the roles of the players. And then defensively, if I were John Harbaugh, I would bring Chuck Pagano back. I would hire somebody who's got veteran experience. Not that you want to make him the coordinator, but you need to give Zach Orr a lesson on how to become a coordinator during the game. It's hard. There's a lot of shit happening in the fourth quarter. There's stuff going on. You got to make adjustments. You got to anticipate things that are going to happen in the fourth quarter. When you got a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, everybody throws their playbook out. Now we're just going to start running stuff. Who do we match up on Adams? Who's going to get the ball to Bowers? How do we handle that? It was horrible. I mean, they gave up from the time the last 4 drives, they had 11 first downs in the game. Before that, they only had 6 first downs the entire game. Now, how did that flip? If I'm John Harbaugh and I realize Gardner Minshew only threw 8 incomplete passes the entire day, how do you sleep at night knowing that? Gardner Minshew has only 8 incomplete passes against our team, and we're going to be a Super Bowl contender? Jesus Christ, good luck.
Okay, you mentioned Zach Orr adjustments. You mentioned Derrick Henry. Maybe they're still trying to find their identity with him. But despite those new faces, this is not the first time the Ravens have blown a big fourth quarter lead. They actually have 10 losses when up by 7 or more points in the fourth quarter since 2021, the most in the NFL.
Wow.
During that 4-year
shocking.
span. What is that? Is that coaching? Because I know John Harbaugh.
Well, I think a little bit of this is it's on Lamar because I think he can't to win games in the fourth quarter, you got to run it and you got to be so pinpoint accurate with your throws. Like C.J. Stroud last week against the Colts on that out route. It was perfectly placed. Lamar ain't doing that. And until they start moving Lamar around and get him under center, it's never going to happen.
All right, coming up next on the GM Shuffle, we're looking more into these NFL upsets.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle. We're talking about John Harbaugh and the Ravens blowing these fourth quarter leads. And now, Michael, Harbaugh's Ravens start 0-2 for the first time since 2015 when he led them to his worst record. They finished that year 5-11. Now they have the Cowboys next. Then they host the Bills. Then they travel to Cincinnati. Theoretically, they could start 0-5. I mean, how do you see this schedule shaking out for them?
Well, I mean, look, it isn't like, they 1 inch away from maybe beating to Kansas City on opening day, but they got behind in that game. Kansas City, Zach Orr gave up 27 points in 26 minutes in this game, right? And Las Vegas, when you look at Las Vegas had 60 plays in the game. They only had the ball for 30 minutes, and they were able to come out and score 26 points. So in 2 weeks, they've given up 26 points. I think, to me, this is going to be a work in progress. They got to get this offensive line to where it's more physical and they can control the game with their run game. They got to get an identity on offense. They don't have one right now. It's all about, we got to do this. It's a little bit of everything. So until they get that, it doesn't matter who's on their schedule. Because look, the Raiders were very beatable. They weren't even playing well, and the Raiders could have beaten them. The other thing is, if I'm John Harbaugh, I'm not trying any more 50-yard field goals with Justin Tucker. Like, I'm going to say, look, you're great, but, I'm going to go for it on fourth down. I'm not going to try these 50-yarders because I know right now that's not your comfort zone. So, but one thing, he'll make them inside of 50, so we'll keep doing that. But I think, to me, one of the things you got to do with your football team at this time of the year is know who the hell you are. And right now, I don't know if John Harbaugh could sit in his office and say, I know who I am. Here's what I do know. Zach Orr needs help on game day. That doesn't mean Zach Orr is not going to be a great coach. We all need help. When you got 3 years of experience in any job, you're not really able to adjust and figure out what the problems are, anticipate them. That's where the wisdom of old men come in. I think he needs a little bit of that. And I think that could help him. And then, this offensive line tragedy that happened with Coach Steve dying, That's a problem. This line's not gotten any better, and they're going to have to figure out how to get it better. And then they got to figure out if we sign Derrick Henry, we're paying him $12 million a year. We better figure out what we want to do with him. And he just can't be a role player. Like, I don't want a role player. Like, here's it. We're going to run the offense through this, and everybody's going to have to do it. That's why, great basketball teams, everybody understands their role. That's where I think that's where Baltimore needs to be, is we got to figure out our role. But look, they got Lamar. He can make some incredible plays with his arm and with his feet. They can fix it, but they're going to have to figure out who they are.
Yeah, it's unique territory for Lamar Jackson as well. He has never started a season 0-2 in the NFL. The last time he did so, he was in college at Louisville. So a lot for the Ravens to figure out there. This week, they head to Dallas, where the Cowboys opened as a 1-point favorite. They are now a 1-point underdog. So that shows where respected money is coming in early in the week. But what do you think the key is to this game here? Because Cowboys coming off a really rough loss.
Well, that respected money, I think, is full of shit anymore. After last weekend, after I got all the respected money was on Dallas last week. All the respected money was on Detroit last week. All the respected money was on Baltimore. I'm so tired of respected money. Like, maybe, I think, to me, the way you get respect is just do your own thing and screw whatever, who are the sharps? That's, I fall into that trap all the time, Grace. Like, I get, who are the sharp? Like, I think I know enough about football to be a sharp.
Sometimes it's people. Yeah, sometimes it's people with a lot of money and the book is just responding to what could be a liability. But I think the ones that do have the power to move markets, those are the ones you want to pay attention to. And I know a few of them personally, because they're running their own numbers. And I know you're not into them. Yeah. So it depends.
And this was not a weekend to be a sharp.
Yeah. But I think that kind of makes everyone feel better that everyone was wrong. So,
yeah.
But anyway,
and we're going to be wrong. I don't think there's any question about that. Mm-hmm. But I think, to me, every time I've seen these line moves, remember, Dallas was the favorite in Cleveland, and it moved to Cleveland, and they lose, right? And so last week, 2 weeks in a row now, we've seen Carolina numbers just start ticking way down. Sharps were betting Carolina. Like, if anybody has guts to bet Carolina moving forward, God bless them. God bless them. We'll get to them later. To me, this game's really all about New Orleans. All summer long, we've been talking about who was going to be the best team in the South. And I said that, New Orleans went into Tampa with Dennis Allen late last year when Tampa was playing better. And they shut down Baker Mayfield. They shut down Dave Canales' offense. They shut them down. And they were too far behind in the race to win. They won 4 of the last 5 games, but that one loss out in Los Angeles killed them. But now they're protecting Carr. Carr only throws the ball 16 times. Here's what's maddening about the game yesterday is the Saints played the perfect game in my mind, is they played Canadian football. And what I mean by that is they got first downs and 2 downs. Whenever a team's playing Canadian football, I'm on it. And Derek Carr only throws the ball 16 times in the game. He's got 11 completions for 243, right? And Shaheed, the free agent, Grace, you got to draft a receiver early in the draft. If you don't pick one in the top 5, you're going to be run out of town, right? Last night I'm watching the game, and there's the little receiver who's been on about 10 teams. I forget his name, playing in the slot. He's making all the catches. Meanwhile, Rome Odunze's on the outside. He's not making any, but you got to draft a receiver in the first pick. DeAndre Carter. He's catching every pass. He's not, nobody, Keenan Allen, you're paying him $24 million to be a possession receiver. You got to have Keenan Allen. Meanwhile, Shaheed's got 4 catches for 96 yards, and he's scoring like crazy. College free agent, by the way. He was out there for everybody to get off the practice squad. But his speed, his explosiveness, his hands. The point here is you can find receivers. And I think Dallas can't play from behind. I think that's pretty clear. If Dallas, I think this game was reminiscent of the Packer game, right? When the Packers started moving the ball, Mike McCarthy saw the Packers converting first downs and 2 downs. When he saw them playing Canadian football, then he sees the Saints playing Canadian football, and they score in the first 6 drive. He starts to panic, and he starts to get away from what he wants to do. And look, I thought the Cowboys were trending in the backward direction. I didn't think they played great against the Browns, but won the game. But when they can't rush the passer with their front 4, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, the no pressure was pretty shocking. And Micah Parsons actually took accountability after the game. He just simply said, we got outplayed. Whoever played on that field, they didn't play up to 100%. So kind of calling out his teammates there as well. But the Saints, I don't know if you've seen this stat, they have scored on 15 of 15 possessions this season. They scored 6 straight touchdowns against the Cowboys. Third down, they had 3 third downs. I think you maybe mentioned that. The definition of efficiency. I'm just wondering how long it lasts. Because is this just it's new under Clint Kubiak and no one has seen this version of their offense before? I mean, how legitimate do you think they are?
Well, I mean, I think they're really legit. I mean, they had 3 receivers yesterday that combined for the 10 catches. They combined for 10 of the 11 catches. They all averaged over 20 yards a catch. I mean, Shaheed averaged 24. Olave averaged 20. And then Kamara averaged 32. I thought Kamara was dead in the water. I thought his numbers would have could trend down. I didn't think he was worth it in the draft. And now he just dominated the Cowboys. But look, I think the one thing we know about Derek Carr is if you protect him and he has time to throw, he's got a great arm and he can throw it up the field. But if he gets hit early in the game, all of a sudden, I think everybody sees this offense. It's given them new life. They were in that Sean Payton offense where they felt like it was wordy. And Carr's responded. Give him credit. He's played really well, but he's played from in front. And I think to me, this week when he gets Philadelphia and their defensive front, however good they're playing at that point, that'll be another test. But I don't see them going away. I mean, I think they're well coached defensively, no matter what people think of Dennis Allen. I think they're well coached defensively. And I think when you can run the ball at 39 times against the Cowboys and you're averaging 4.9 yards a carry, you're going to win a lot of games going that way. Kamara had 20 carries for $115 yesterday. They were always in control of that game. Like you said, they went 6 straight possessions without. Did you see Mike Zimmer's face? I mean, Mike Zimmer Mike Zimmer saw like he basically had. It's one of those games where he's like, "Well, shit, this is never going to stop."
Yeah, Alvin Kamara, 4 touchdowns after scoring 6 of all of last season and just 4 total the year before. I was a little happy for him after the game. He had some nice sound bites. He said the sky is the limit with this team. But for the Cowboys, I mean, how much can we learn about this? Is the hard thing with the weeks 1 and 2, Michael. It's not enough data points to make complete judgments of these teams. So I'm not quite sure how seriously we can take either side in this one.
Well,
and now they face an angry Ravens team next.
Right. Who's not great on defense. Now, the Cowboys couldn't pass protect yesterday. They struggled. I think to me, they moved the ball. They couldn't turn it. They couldn't turn points. They just got stumbled in the red zone. I'm not sure how good the Cowboys are on defense. I think if you can get in front of the Dallas Cowboys, you got a chance. But if you make them play from behind, I think that's when they gain the advantage. This is all about, for me, Dallas is all about the first quarter. They got to. I've said this all last year, Grace. I thought Dallas overachieved. I do not see Dallas as an incredibly talented team. They have no run game. They have no running backs. I think they've got good receivers. They have a young offensive line. Defensively, the defensive tackles make me worry. I don't see that they have elite coverage people. They're good. I don't think they're elite. And I think if you can protect, you're going to be able to throw a football at them, which is exactly what happened yesterday with the Saints.
Going back to what you said earlier about which sharps do we believe in all this market movement with the Cowboys, I think that's exactly it. Some people underrated them. Some people overrated them in their power rankings. It's really hard to get a solid judgment right now. And actually, heading into the season, the Eagles were my pick to win the division. Once the Cowboys win total dropped from 10.5 to 9.5, I thought that play was gone. But my next angle for fading them was bet the Cowboys to miss the playoffs. So it kind of looks like we see them the same way there. It's reminiscent. You said the Packers game last year. I think that 49ers game in the regular season too. Bad run game, bad run defense. And Jerry Jones says we're going all in this season. They didn't do that. And the same problems are resurfacing.
No question. They didn't fix them. That's the worst thing.
All right. Coming up next, we're getting into more surprise starts from some of these new quarterbacks and upset teams. You're listening to the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Co. New York, New York. All right, Michael, I know there's one team you really want to get to here. You've had quite some thoughts on a few previous episodes of GM Shuffle, but the Colts, they just can't seem to get any rhythm on either side of the ball here. Allowing 237 rush yards in one half. How does that happen?
Well, I'll tell you exactly how it happens. Matt LaFleur comes back from Brazil. He puts on Colt tape. He knows what front they're going to be in. He knows what coverages they're going to be in. He formations them. He knows he has to run the ball, so he gains a half a man advantage with his game plan. And he starts the first, and he knows he's got to play from in front. Give LaFleur credit. Nice haircut. Big Daddy enjoyed it, but Big Daddy was really impressed. I mean, I got text from Big Daddy. Oh, boy, LaFleur's doing really good. Great game plan to start out. So he sits in his office before the game. He knows everything that the Colts are going to do. So he starts the game off. He holds the ball for 13 minutes and 17 seconds. He gets 8 first downs rushing. He converts 3 of 4, and he walks out of the first quarter with a 10-0 lead. Meanwhile, now Malik Willis doesn't have to participate in the game, right? He doesn't have to play. Keep trying to run the ball. It's still Josh Jacobs. I said this before the game started. I would get in short yardage goal line and play it in the middle of the field and force Malik Willis to have to throw the goddamn ball. But that's not the Colts. The Colts are the Colts. They're going to do what they do. And what they do is they let Green Bay control the ball. Now they're playing from behind. But the play that drove me crazy of all this, which I knew Bradley was never going to stop him. I knew that LaFleur was going to be able to do that. I had no faith in Malik Willis. Trust me on that. I had no faith. Now, the Sharps were all over Green Bay, by the way, on this one. Correct to the Sharps. But I couldn't go there because of Willis. But here's what I would say to you. So this is what drives me crazy. And I know – you love numbers and analytics and all that, and I get it. There's a place in football. I do. I don't mean to be disparaging here at all towards analytics, but here's where I have a real issue, okay? You start the second half. You're down 10-0. You're playing Malik Willis. You weathered the storm in the sense that, okay, they come out with their first drive. You kind of have what they do. You know their game plan now. You understand what they're trying to accomplish. So you start the second half, you have the ball. You want to score so badly, you want to catch up. But now you're faced with a 4th and 4 at your own 46. Okay? So now if I punt the ball back to them, I have a pretty good chance. I can play a little field position here, which is unheard of in the analytical community. Nobody wants to do that, right? Nobody wants to play field position. They want to go for it on 4th down. So Steichen goes for it on 4th down. All right? They don't convert. And 2 more first downs, they kick a field goal to go put 3 more points. Why give Malik Willis 40 yards of free territory? Why not make him earn it? Pin him inside the 10. You know they're going to come out and hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs. You know if he's stuck in his own backyard, say Malik Willis has got the ball at 1st and 10 at the 2. What do you think LaFleur is going to call? He's going to call runs. You think he's going to let Malik Willis throw the ball down there? Of course he's not going to let him throw it. He's going to make him call runs. So now I stop him, now I might get the ball back at my own 40, and now I got a chance to get 3 points. But no, when I go for it on 4th down, I gain the advantage to him. It was the dumbest of all. Of course, nobody said a word about it because they went for it on 4th down, which everybody loves. To me, this is where understanding your opponent has to be applied to analytics. Who are we playing? That's why when that stupid freaking graph comes up there that says go for it, have you yet to see on Sunday Night Football where that graphic says don't go for it? I've yet to see that. That happens all the time. Oh, says go for it. It must be just plugged in. Go for it. At what point do you say they have Malik Willis? They won't let him throw the ball in the game. Why would we not punt the ball back to him and see if he'll turn it over? I mean, one of the reasons I took Denver is because I was convinced Justin Fields would turn the ball over at some point. I was wrong on that. I played a hunch. I was wrong. I played a hunch on Sean McVay. I was wrong. I'm done playing hunches, okay? I screwed up my betting card this week on recommendations because of hunches. My fault. I take responsibility. But to me, this is stupidity, Grace. Well,
I mean, I have to go back and look at that. I'm not in game. Those aren't the kind of analytics I'm looking at, but I do think you're right. There is a balance. There's a marriage between using the analytics to your favor, but then using common sense as well. And so you
Yeah.
hit that
Well,
right
common
there.
sense isn't common. What happened to Shane
Yeah.
Steichen was he saw his team get run over and he got desperate and he panicked. You can't panic. It's a long game. Just get the game in the fourth quarter. Make it a one-score game. As bad as Jacksonville played yesterday on Sunday, they had the game into the fourth quarter. They could have easily won the game in the fourth quarter. Of course, when they needed to score a touchdown in the red zone, they couldn't do it. But to me, if you could keep yourself in the game into the fourth quarter, like the Titans were doing, right? They were doing it. They just couldn't cash in. But to me, when you just give away 3 points, when 3 points are so important, and it's going to be a tight game, I think it's a huge mistake. Again, here's the biggest issue. How many times do you think coaches go into halftime and when they come out, the head coach particularly say, how many points do you think we're going to need to win the game? See, if I were the head coach of the Colts, I would have said, if we can get to 17, we'll win this game. Even though we didn't have any points, if we can get to 17, we can win. Now, if getting to 17, that's just 3 possessions. If I get 6 possessions in the second half, I can punt on one of them. But if I think I need 30 points, like the Rams, there wasn't enough possessions left in that game for them to get back in it. So you got to go for it on fourth down. That to me is like, how many more possessions will I get, which they never put in that stupid box on go for it on fourth down. Like, how many more possessions do I have? How many more chances do I have at that? What's the final score? What will happen? What's the winning score going to be?
Are you saying
if you don't
they're
know that
not
coming out at halftime, you're not a head coach.
Yeah. I know that seems really elementary to me. Like that's what we do as bettors, right? We look at the team totals, we look at pacing and number of possessions, and that's how we make picks. So if an NFL head coach is not doing that math, that I'm confused how they're employed. Is that what you're saying? They're not doing that math at halftime?
Nobody's doing that. I don't think any. Well, I know Belichick was doing that math. I know he was. I'm sure there are some that do it. I don't maybe know, but the way some teams behave, they're not doing it. When you give up a possession and you give Malik Willis the ball at your own 46, you're not doing that math. You're just basically becoming desperate. See, Shane Steichen's a really good play caller. He's a really good offensive designer. He's yet to move himself into a head coaching category because he does nothing that a head coach should do. He does nothing that just like Mike McDaniels, he does nothing that a head coach should do. They just call plays, and McDaniels is quirky and everybody loves him. He's got his pants up high. He's hip. He's cool. He's got great shades. He's driving a Bentley. Hey, he's great. But nothing like a head coach. I was talking to, like there was a time where it was Joe Gibbs, Bill Parcells, Bill Walsh. I mean, those guys understood what the score was going to be like to win the game. Trust me on that. I mean, I hate to sound like the old guy on the lawn, but that's what you have to do. You got to figure out what is it going to take to win this game and how do I get there, right? I'm sure John Harbaugh knew 23 wasn't going to win the game, but he also knew his clock was his opponent when he had 10. But when the game got a little tighter, now all of a sudden the game, it takes on a different meaning.
Yeah, it's interesting that these newer, more analytical based coaches wouldn't be doing the simple math like that. But let's squeeze some more games in here and let's go to the Jets Titans because you brought up Will Levis, and this is the second week in the row that his quotes on quotes boneheaded mistakes have cost Tennessee games. I mean, what more is there to say, Michael? It just gets worse and worse.
Well, there's plenty to say on this one, Grace. You live in Nashville. I mean, everything that they've done in Tennessee was built around Will Levis is the guy. He's going to be the guy. So we fire Mike Vrabel because he doesn't think Levis is the guy, and we're going to build our team around. So we hire Brian Callahan to fix Will Levis. Meanwhile, after 2 games, Brian Callahan has bailed on Will Levis as much as you can bail on him, right? I mean, the guy you can't cure stupidity. It's dumb plays. Like he's costing his team the game. You can't do that. This is too hard. It's too damn hard. We're trusting you. We're trusting you with the life and the careers of so many people, and you just want to give it away with a stupid play? Here's the biggest issue for Will Levis is those 52 other guys in his locker room. At some point, those guys are going to say, yo, dude, you're killing me. I'm out here fighting my ass off. We're making Aaron Rodgers work his ass off to get yards. We win the game, but you 17 points off of turnovers? Come on, man. That's how you lose a locker room. Like, how close do you think? Like, I can tell you this: one more bonehead, Mason Rudolph's going in. I'd have put Mason Rudolph in that. I would have played Mason Rudolph yesterday, and you know what would have happened? They would have beaten the Jets. They would have beaten the Jets. Mason Rudolph would have made more plays. Mason Rudolph's better than Will Levis. I'm telling you, Mason Rudolph's better. And I don't think Mason Rudolph's any good, but Mason Rudolph's better. Will Levis, you're going nowhere. You are going nowhere. You can't play like he plays and all of a sudden turn around. And then you see him on the sideline. Oh, I got it. No, man, you don't have it. Like, that's the worst thing at all. I got it. My bad. I got it. No, you don't have it. You ever see Michael Jordan say, my bad? You don't make plays like that. Yeah, I mean, the guy plays the game like a robot. He has no instincts. When you have no instincts, you do what he does. You can't cure that. You can't cure quarterbacks that lack instincts. Does he have a great arm? Absolutely. Could he make some great throws? Absolutely. Does he have instincts for the position? No. Does he have a feel for the position? No. That's why Sean Clifford beat his ass out at Penn State. Like, Ryan Carthen's going down a road that's only going to lead to a crash. It's a disaster.
An impending car crash. Yeah. I mean, it already feels like they've crashed the car a couple times. His 5 giveaways through 2 weeks, the most in the NFL right now. It's also the most for the Titans franchise through 2 weeks since 92. So Will Levis on the wrong side of history here.
And his body language, Grace, is bad. I mean, Gino from up at University of Connecticut women's basketball team, he talks about body language on the players. His body language, to me, irritates me as much as his play.
What, you think it's the ego? Because you were mentioning instincts. Yeah. When I think Will Levis, I think hero ball. Like, you saw it at Kentucky. So I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you can call it lack of instincts, but it seems synonymous with ego to me right now.
I agree with that. It is. It's because he's not a self-aware player. When you're not self-aware, your ego's in the way. Where when you're self-aware, you know what you can and what you can't do.
All right, well, something to monitor. Maybe it's Mason Rudolph time. More NFL recapping of Week 2 on the other side of GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back into the GM Shuffle. A few more games we got to cover here, so we're going to do this a little rapid fire. We're going to start with the Bucs and Lions. Another 10% of survivor entrants were gone with this Lions loss. And Michael, it really felt like the Bucs were leaving the Lions in this one. So what was your reaction to the final score?
Yeah. The Lions have nobody to blame. This is one of those games where the Lions lost. I mean, they're 1 for 7 in the red zone. You know, they let Jared Goff throw the ball. Look, I know Tampa didn't have anybody in their secondary, but you let Jared Goff throw the ball 53 times, you're not self-aware, especially considering how good you could run the football, how good your strength is. Once again, the month of September is an identification. Who are we? Who do we want to be? And if you're Detroit, you want to run the ball, and you were running it against them, right? You want to run it. You know, you averaged 5.1 yards a carry. You know, you had great balance, great mix, but to throw it 55 times in the game, come on now, you know, and then they screw up in the red zone. And I mean, Dan Campbell took responsibility for it. This is one of those games you watch, look at the box score and you say, well, how did Detroit lose? Detroit should have covered this game easily, but they played they played badly when it mattered the most, and it affected them.
Yeah, that Bucs defensive performance, holding the Lions to 1 touchdown on 7 red zone trips, was actually one of the best defensive performances from an efficiency standpoint in the last 25 seasons. But yeah, one of those final scores that you're kind of left scratching your head. Let's move on to Sam Darnold's resurgence with the Vikings. He throws 2 touchdowns as the Vikings beat maybe the best team in the NFC, or at least, you know, the Super Bowl runner-up in the 49ers. What was your reaction to this one?
I mean, 2 weeks in a row, the guy leads his team on a 99-yard drive. I mean, he throws a strike to Jefferson. It was pretty a pass you're going to find. I think, to me, once again, I'm going to keep quoting Coach Walsh. Only a few people in the world can coach a quarterback, and even fewer can evaluate him. Kevin O'Connell is in that. He can evaluate and he can coach him. And he's getting Sam Darnold to play at levels no one else could. And here's the most important factor. He knows who Sam Darnold is, and Sam Darnold has become self-aware. So he still made a mistake. Oh, people make fun and he turned the ball over. Every quarterback turns the ball over. Patrick Mahomes had 2 of them yesterday, right? Nobody talks about that, right? But he makes the plays. He plays within himself. The game really wasn't as close as the score. Aaron Jones fumbles going in. But we know this about San Francisco. When they turn the ball over and when they don't play from in front, they're not the same team. And that's exactly what happened. They had opportunities to score and to score the first quarter that they just couldn't get it. Again, red zone failed a lot of teams. San Francisco red zone was a problem.
Yeah. San Francisco, a running team, when they're playing from behind, I mean, they lose half of their identity. I thought the epitome of the game was the Niners going for it on the goal line. They miss it. And then the next play, Darnold hits Jefferson for that 97-yard touchdown. That pretty much sums up the game right there.
Right there.
Let's look.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's look at the Browns Jags. Trevor Lawrence, what do you think of him through 2 games so far?
Well, look, I mean, they paid Trevor Lawrence all this money and they can't, he throws 16 incomplete passes in the game. I mean, my problem with Jacksonville is that they have no toughness. Like, they average 5-1 a carry in the game, and yet they don't want to run the football. They want to keep constantly trying to make plays. Defensively, they could never get control of the game. I mean, here's the reality. Cleveland, when they needed to control the game in the fourth quarter, they went on a huge, long drive, right? They went on, they basically, the score is 16-13, and and then next thing you know, Cleveland had the ball. They had a punt, but Cleveland had the ball for almost 6 minutes on the next drive. They get it at 7:32 to go in the game, and Jacksonville doesn't get it to under the 2-minute warning. They couldn't get off the field. I mean, they couldn't get off the field. Cleveland did exactly what you have to do. They didn't lose the game. They didn't let Deshaun lose the game for them, and they let their defense dominate. I mean, Jacksonville's offensive line is problematic. Lawrence throws way too many incomplete passes, and they just have no physical toughness as a team. They're more talented than they should be. I mean, they should win more games, but they don't. I mean, they had 127 yards rushing, understanding that 33 came from Trevor Lawrence in the game. But to me, they don't really have a physical toughness to their team. They're always trying, and they don't have an identity because of it. And I think, to me, when you only throw 14 completed passes in a game, when you know it's a lot of man coverage, that's on the quarterback. They paid this guy $50 million. I mean, they hired Peterson to fix his problems. He ain't fixed any of them yet.
Yeah, I know your theme of the day is red zones. Jags were 1 for 4 in the red zone. Browns went 1 for 1. They had 1 red zone opportunity and still won the game. To me, that kind of spells out,
you know what?
This is a coaching problem.
You know what happens in the red zone? When you don't have toughness and you can't run the ball down there, you can't run it down the red zone. It's hard to throw it into tight windows. Andy Reid does a good job of creating confusion with this, but they can run it. They've got toughness up front. I don't see Jacksonville as a tough-minded team on either side of the ball on the offensive or defensive lines. I think they've got some talented players. I don't see them as tough-minded, and I don't think they can punch it into. They lost Bugsby in pregame warm-up to an injury. They lost 2 guys in pregame. They lost a tight end too, Evan Ingram, in pregame warm-up, so that affected them. But still, they don't have enough toughness, to me, to really pound the rock in there, and that's what affects you in the red zone.
Yeah, Jags have the Bills and Texans next, so it's possible they start this season in an 0-4 hole. Let's get another game in here, though. The Giants and Commanders. This is hilarious, Michael. I have to read you this stat, and maybe you've already heard it. The Giants become the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, allow 0 touchdowns, but still lose the game. How does that happen?
I mean, I watched this game. I watched it from start to finish. I thought the Giants would win this game, and they should have won the game. Now, they lose Graham Gano on the kickoff. My man Scott Novak did not disappoint. He threw his flag the first freaking play of the game, got called. Gano pulls his hamstring on the first play of the game, so now they're down a kicker, right? But the problem is, I don't know if you watched Hard Knocks. Do you remember how happy Brian Daboll and Joe Shane were because of hiring Shane Bowen and his defense could stop the run? Oh, yeah, they stopped the run all right. 35 carries, 215 yards. I mean, they never stopped it. I mean, how about this? Jaden Daniels only had 5 incomplete passes the entire day. He was sacked 5 times too, but he only had 5 incomplete passes. I mean, if you look at this thing, it's amazing that they were in the game. Here's Washington's drive chart. Field goal, field goal, field goal, end of half. Field goal, field goal, field goal, field goal. That's their drive chart. That's their drive. That's the New York Football Giants. You're the defense. You hired this guy to fix your defense. You couldn't wait. Oh, how about when they are all looking at the stats? Oh, if we can get this number, we got to hire him. And then how about this? What kind of players do you like, Shane? How do you want to fix that? 6 field goals. Right? There was not the only drive they stopped them without a first down was at the end of the half. They had 7 drives and scored on every single one. This is the Washington Commanders offense who can't block anybody. How does that happen? The New York Giants. I mean, look, I don't want to listen to any Giant fans. I've told you this now. It's been going on for 5 years. You don't want to listen. You call me a Giant hater. You deserve what you get. You got a shitty team. You got no quarterback. Don't tell me Daniel Jones was better yesterday. He was playing against the shittiest defense in football. And you still couldn't run the ball. I mean, I feel bad for John Mara. John Mara now tonight, he's got to go home and he's got to sit in front of his TV and he's got to watch Saquon Barkley. Oh, well, Devin Singletary had 95 yards rushing. Oh, great. Oh, that's great. Neighbors had 12.7. That's great. We couldn't win the game. Why? Because we couldn't stop anybody. Last year, they were 10 times better on defense with Don Martindale, but, Martindale wasn't collaborative enough. He wasn't letting people be involved. So now they're more collaborative. How's that working out for them? Right? How's that working out? I mean, if they had Martindale coaching the defense on that team, they would have been able to stop it. Oh, we can't stop the run. See, we're going to bend but don't break. Okay, we're going to bend and don't break. They're lucky Washington couldn't score in the red zone.
I can't believe this didn't go over. I just had to pull it up. Just to make sure. It went under 43, but
nobody can believe it didn't go off because both teams were shitty in the red zone. Well, no, Washington, New York wasn't. They were 3 for 3 when they got it down there. But when you're 0 for 6, But look, how about this? Washington had the ball for 37 minutes. I mean, New York had the ball only 22 minutes and they scored 18 points?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're just cursed at this point.
I mean, it's just, to me, who are now I know they'll beat the Panthers when they go over to Germany. The Germans will be just delightful with that.
I know.
Game. I'm sure they're going to be so.
They don't deserve
the Germans are going to hate us forever. Yeah, somebody's going to get a bad Mercedes for that. You're going to get a bad Mercedes. They're going to be pissed off at us forever.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left, so let's get our awards in here. Who's your DraftKings crowning moment?
Yeah. You got to give it to Baltimore. I mean, the fourth quarter for Baltimore had to be the crowning moment of the game because they were able to come back, win the game when they had to, especially considering that, that everybody knew that they had to throw the ball and they still threw it and they won. So that's the crowning moment. I think they deserve it.
Yeah, the Raiders win on the money line as plus 310 underdogs. Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. Submit your winning bets for a chance to be featured. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right. It feels like there's a lot of ways we could go here, but who's your fraud of the week?
I went with Dallas. I mean, there's so many ways to go. You could have gone there, but Dallas's defense has to be the fraud of the week, right? I mean, they're so bad, and they, when you give up 6 scores in the first 6 possessions, poor Mike Zimmer. Mike Zimmer's probably wondering, what the hell did I come back for? It looked like he just got slapped. I mean, I feel bad for him on that one. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the Fred Palermo best game plan.
Got to give credit to the Bucs. They played great in the red zone where it mattered. I mean, that's living proof on that. They figured out how to play good in the red zone. They didn't turn the ball over. They were effective on offense. I mean, the Bucs are 2-0. Say what you want. No secondary players there, and they still found a way.
How about on the lamb?
We'll just put the Panthers permanently on the lamb. Just permanently put them on the lamb. Here's what I don't understand. How could David Tepper say he cares about winning and he didn't even interview Bill Belichick for the head coaching job because he's got Dan Morgan as his GM? If you don't know, now you don't know. Playing rookie quarterbacks in the NFL ain't easy, Grace. But to me, David Tepper not even interviewing Belichick tells you all you need to know, that the guy only wants to win his way.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot we could go with Panthers ownership there, but we'll save that for another time. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please download and subscribe wherever you get your pods or watch on the DraftKings YouTube page. For Michael Lombardi, I'm Grace Remington. We will see you back here on Thursday.